Because what happened there is that through their death, people started transforming the way they look at life. People started seeking more purpose in life. People started looking for reasons to live beyond the immediate gratification and whatever we learn in Western culture to be selfish, so to speak.
Which people? The mourners? The Pakistanis? The Indians? Who?
Well, I'm going to raise my hand. Does anyone else want to raise their hand? Okay. I think that everyone in this room, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying everyone in this room, I believe, took them, at least at some point in this tragedy, to think, what can I do to make this world a little bit better? What can I do to improve myself? Because we can't go in there and wipe out all the terrorists, but what we can do is a little step forward in the way of making this world a better place. And it could be as simple as putting a dollar in the pushka. It could be as simple as saying hello to someone that you normally ignore. These are not insignificant actions. They're not insignificant actions. And I shared the story on Shabbos, which I'm sure you remember, Arcus, you were there. When we do good, we have no idea how we're affecting people. And it resonates in the universe. In other words, even in the privacy of your own home, when you do one more good deed, it has a cosmic effect. There's a ripple effect. It's no different than throwing a stone into a pond. Yeah.
He says that, it's terrible that I had to come this way, but probably more people heard of Chabad this week than for years. And I saw one Chabad website where they were asking people to pledge a mitzvah, and I checked last night, there were over 1,200 already.
Yeah.
And that's just the people that went online,
Right.
who knows what else happened.
Right. Here in our Chabad, we have people call that would not normally have contacted us, and they asked, we'd like to donate to the child who survived, And these are strangers. So I believe that, as much as the media inundates us with tragedy, and these are hating those, and so on and so forth, and people have everything to say about religion, how it's the cause of wars, right, and so on. It's also the cause of so much good, and we tend to look at it in an unbalanced way. There's so much good going on that's unhailed, what's the word I'm saying? Unnoticed, unrecognized, unannounced, whatever, that's unheralded. And I believe that just like everyone in this room, I am positive that every single person sitting in this room thought about how to be better after this tragedy and what to do for others. I'm sure that people in other places are like this too. I'd say the majority of people who are good, decent human beings react in the very same way, without being told to. So they're again, it doesn't fully answer the question. Why should a person ever suffer? There is no good answer. But what good came from it, I guarantee you that something changed in this entire world. I mean, think about it. 60 years ago, when you had worse things happening in the world, right, during World War II, millions of people were being slaughtered. The world didn't even say boo. Here we are 60 years later, and we've got countries up in arms, saying, how could this happen? This is so terrible. I think we've come a long way. And this is a very encouraging thing, because the Torah predicts that this is how things will happen. As we see the world slowly getting better, eventually it's going to reach that tipping point. And that's what we call the time of Mashiach. And we're right there. We're right there.
Does Judaism teach that, the metaphor of the pebble in the water, the good deed, kind of resonates? Is it the same with wicked deeds? Does it teach that?
Okay, so with wicked deeds, that's my question. Wickedness, before I answer your question directly, I'm going to talk about a more metaphysical concept. Okay, the Torah says that when God created the world, He created everything in it. We say in the prayers every morning, we say, God who created darkness and light, meaning evil and goodness. There's no concept of devil in Judaism. There's no fallen angel that's always going against God. Even the forces of evil were created with an intention and a purpose, and God gives them sustenance, so to speak. It's not that God wants evil to exist, but they do serve a better purpose. Evil, therefore, cannot exist without being fed and nurtured. When Mashiach comes, God's going to turn the tap off, and evil will just dissipate by itself. So evil doesn't have a sustaining existence, it needs to be nurtured from holiness. Holiness and goodness, on the other hand, is self-sustaining because it derives from God, who is holy, who is good, who is living. So there's that advantage, so to speak, that goodness has over evil. That's inherent in the very creation of these two things. Now, to answer your question, when we apply that to the realm of human beings and how we behave, good deeds can never go away, no matter how hard you try. If you do one good deed, it resonates for all eternity. If you do a bad deed, it also resonates. But as soon as you do tshuva, then it goes away. So by doing tshuva, one can eradicate the evil by truly regretting what you did and by resolving to do better in the future and doing better. You can reverse what took place in the past. And so, the Rabbi pointed this out. He says that our generation looks at ourselves, and we compare ourselves to the earlier generations. We all have Zaydis and Babis who are great tzaddikim, who did, prayed, and from, they went from Shachris, they davened so long, it was already Mincha by the time they finished. They went from Mincha to Maariv, to the evening service. There was never time to do anything else because they were so, and the amazing stories we hear of the self-sacrifice, during the Crusades and during the Inquisition, and these are things that we wonder, would I do the same thing? I don't know. We ask ourselves these questions. We're midgets, spiritual midgets compared to these giants. So one might ask, so how is it possible that we're going to change the world if they couldn't? Right? So the Rebbe pointed out that exactly what you're bringing up is that good never ends. Our good deeds are built on their good deeds. We're not acting on our own. But we've had generations of giants doing good, and now all it takes is the midgets to put a little bit more, right, before the tipping point, right, before the balance tips. Evil, on the other hand, is not cumulative, because even though it will last in a spiritual sense even after you do it, but it eventually goes away through our tshuva and through Yom Kippur and through experiences that we go through. So it's not eternal. Any questions? This concept of revealed good and hidden good we'll probably revisit towards the end of the class again. But let's move on to the next part. Slides. Learning activity. Okay, we're on page 68. All right, we just covered a very, very broad topic and something that needs its own seminar. We just talked about suffering. Okay? Why is there suffering? Why do the good suffer? Why do the evil prosper? This is something that we could spend hours and hours on. We just spent the first half an hour on it. Okay? If there's questions and you want to ask them after the class, I'm here to discuss. We need to move on to the next problem you might encounter when it comes to being joyous, and that's guilt. Okay? Of course, Jews are very, very well. We're very familiar with guilt. The good old Jewish mother jokes. I like the one about the little Jewish mother who bought her son 2 ties. And what happened? He came to dinner wearing one of the ties. What did she say? What's wrong with the other one? The good old Jewish guilt trip. Yeah.
You know how many Jewish mothers it takes to change a light bulb?
None, so I'll sit in the dark.
Yeah.
Right, I'll sit in the dark. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Right.
I don't mind.
So, how do we deal with guilt? It is very important because if we're going to move on in the spiritual journey, we need to have the tools to cope with the guilt. What would cause guilt? Number 1, write down 1 or 2 examples of circumstances in which one might feel guilty or down about something in the past. And 2, share them with your partner and tell him or her if you think these feelings of guilt have a positive or negative impact on the individuals. Okay. So we're going to talk about in a minute is positive guilt versus negative guilt. 2 different things. Yes. Just give it a thought and then we'll move on. Give it a thought.
It's Yiddish.
All right, next slide, Jack.
It's Yiddish.